listen here, the last thing I want to do is put more car content out into the world, but it seems like all of these cagers still can't wrap their little soft brains around the fact that motorcycles are superior than cars in just about every way. And until that day comes, I feel obligated to chime in every now and again to drive the point home. So that is what we're going to do today. We're going to put a handful of cars head to head against some motorcycles and compare them in a variety of scenarios. And since I don't think Jay Leonard watches Yami Noob, I'm going to try to stay relatively reasonable with the car selection. Not ultra elite one-off supercars reserved for the ultra wealthy, but instead like normal supercars for the moderately rich. Because come on, any car south of like 100 grand is going to only take like 300 horsepower. And in this context, a car with 300 horsepower might as well be a Civic. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first car in today's shootout is the Audi R8 V10. This car comes in both a rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive configuration. I feel like cars are going to need all the advantage they can get today, so I'll choose the specs from the all-wheel drive or Quattro model. This car has a 5.2-liter V10 engine that is making 602 horsepower. It has a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission because generations of car enthusiast inbreeding has left the current generation of affluent car drivers unable to operate a standard manual transmission. Forgive me just calling it like I see it. Oh, and for an added monthly fee, you can satellite traffic light information, have Amazon Alex ride Copilot, and turn this leather-clad German roadster into a $200,000 rolling Wi-Fi hotspot. And actually, the total MSRP for the Audi R8 Quattro is just shy of $215,000. So that could buy you like 9 fully built Kawasaki H2s. The next car for our shootout is the Porsche 911 Turbo. It's like you live your whole life thinking Porsches are fast, then you look a little bit closer and realize you have to go up like 6 trim models before the 911 comes anywhere close to holding a candle to a modern superbike. The 911 Turbo has a twin turbocharged 3.8-liter flat-six engine that is making 572 horsepower and 553 foot-pounds of torque. It has a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission as well. The 911 Turbo has some performance features like active suspension to make the driver experience a little bit easier on the retired 75-year-old lawyer who drive these who are slowly losing their grip on reality. I wonder if this car comes with an included Porsche branded bedpan to even further accommodate the aging geezers who may find themselves in possession of their very own 911. This car costs $182,900. The last car we will use in our comparison is a little something for all the patriots in the audience, the Z06 Corvette. Speaking of old people, Corvettes have always been the light at the end of the tunnel that is a working class American life. You work hard in the GM factory in Michigan, you put your kids through college, you retire, and when you've got your final years all mapped out with a financial planner, you spend your remaining nest egg on a Corvette that you'll use to take your old lady to knitting expos and the occasional car show. But since those days, GM has moved all the production jobs to Mexico and doubled the price of the Z06. So I don't know who this car is aimed at anymore. In 2023, Z06 has a 5.5-liter V8 engine that makes 670 horsepower and 460 foot-pounds of torque. It has an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission, has Brembo brakes, but unlike the last two cars, only has rear-wheel drive. The Z06 has a base MSRP of $105,300, but good luck getting your hands on one. Before we jump into the motorcycle side of things, I wanted to take a moment to shout out our store shop.yaminoob.co. We've got some amazing gear for beginner riders, so if you've been wanting to take the plunge and become a motorcyclist, check out the link down below and get started with one of our reasonably priced helmets that have all relevant safety ratings and are under $120. You also get entered to win our fantastic giveaway motorcycles. Click the link down below and find your gear. Now let's check out these motorcycles. So those were the cars we will use for our comparisons. Since we have no reason to be price conscious when up against a car, let's just go full bananas with these. We'll go Honda Fireblade, Ducati Panigale V4, and the Yamaha R1M. Each bike is making immense power and are all reasonably priced. The Honda Fireblade has a 999cc inline 4 that makes 215 horsepower and 83 foot-pounds of torque. The Ducati has an 1103cc V4 engine that makes 210 horsepower and 91 foot-pounds of torque. The Yamaha R1M makes 198 horsepower and 83 foot-pounds of torque. Calm yourself, spec sheet warriors, the rest of the specs should come up normally as we start our comparisons. The first comparison that is standard to make when comparing vehicle speed is their 0 to 60 time. So ranked from fastest to slowest 0 to 60 time across our motorcycles and cars are as follows. Tied for first place is actually the Z06 Corvette and the Yamaha R1M, both clocking 60 miles per hour at 2.6 seconds. Next is the Porsche 911 Turbo coming in at 2.7 seconds, then the Honda Fireblade, the Ducati, and the Audi R8. So for the most part, these cars and motorcycles are pretty well matched when it comes to initial acceleration. But also, almost all of the cars have all-wheel drive and do not risk flipping over backwards onto themselves. So I think they are fundamentally advantaged in that way. Another way to compare vehicles is by top speed. To me, this one is always a little arbitrary because no one is really going to ever have the space required to meet these speeds. They're not going to take their $200,000 car to the salt flats. But anyway, ranked by top speed, we have both the R8 and the 911 Turbo with a top speed of 199 miles per hour. The Ducati has an ECU limited top speed of 198 miles per hour. The Z06 has a top speed of 195 miles per hour. And then, like any good old 600cc sport bike, the Fireblade and R1M are topping out at a measly 186 miles per hour. If these leader bikes top out at 186, something tells me those 600 squids might be lying. Okay, we understand that cars have a lot of advantages for speed. They're bigger, they carry more momentum, they won't tip over, they won't wheelie, and all you need to drive them is be 16 years old and have a few rich uncles. Whereas a motorcycle has a lot more risk factors. To fully push a motorcycle to the limit, you need a highly skilled operator as well as a suite of rider aids like traction control and wheelie control. So it is safe to say in certain contexts, cars are faster. You just need to turn on launch control, rev it to the red line, and click up through the gears with your paddles. I'm not saying it is easy, but what the hell, screw it. It's surely easier than riding a motorcycle. But when it comes to power to weight ratios and maybe more important power to dollar value, motorcycles will always win hands down. Let's take a look at that. Power to weight ratios are really drastically different when comparing cars and motorcycles. So different I thought my math had to be wrong. But then I remembered cars weigh almost 10 times as much as motorcycles do, and then my figures make some sense. So listed from highest to lowest power to weight ratio, meaning from the amount of horsepower for 1 pound of automobile, we have in first place the Ducati is coming in at 0.54 4 horsepower per pound. This little red meatball is pushing 210 horsepower out of a scant 386 pound motorcycle. That is pretty damn fast for such a light bike. That is more power than a base level Camry while weighing less than its engine itself. Next up is the Honda Fireblade with a power to weight ratio of 0.483. And the Yamaha R1M is right on target with 0.4 4 horsepower per pound. As for the cars, the numbers seem almost arbitrary as they are a fraction of the power the motorcycles are making in comparison to their weight. The car with the highest power to weight ratio is the Z06 Corvette with 0.19, then the Audi R8 with 0.165, and then 911 Turbo with 0.157. So clearly, motorcycles are far superior as far as power to weight goes. No one cares that your modified supercar is making 800 horsepower. It still won't have the power to weight ratio of a K5 GSXR, and more importantly than the power to weight ratio is the power to dollar ratio. I mean, if motorcycles needed yet another reason to prove that they are superior to cars, the accessible price point is working in their favor. Unlike having to start an OnlyFans to afford a $150,000 supercar, you can get a motorcycle that will outperform them in about every way for less than 20 grand. Here are the selections ranked by the amount of power your dollar will get you. Coming in first place as the best bang for your buck option for someone who wants to go fast and not bankrupt their family is, somewhat ironically, the Ducati, coming in at just $116 per horsepower. Next is the Fireblade at $134, then the R1M at $136. Looking at the cars, the Corvette is again proving to be the poster child for most affordable boomer sports car with a relatively modest $157 per horsepower. And once you look at the Porsche and the R8, you realize you're just getting screwed, paying for all the German luxury and instead of pure raw performance. The 911 Turbo costs $320 per horsepower, and the Audi R8 is in last place at $357. And remember, the cars I chose today are considered to be affordable as far as exotic supercars go. There are no true exotics on the list today. I feel like you really start feeling diminishing returns when you get into the ultra exotic car realm. Interestingly, I chose some pretty high-end motorcycles as well. So to truly paint the picture, let's compare, say, the Z06, which is a pretty budget-friendly car making serious power, to a motorcycle that is far more modest than the $25,000 superbike. Okay, I know the MT MT-07. So an MT-07 makes 75 horsepower and weighs 406 pounds. That is a power to weight ratio of 0.185. And the Z06 has a power to weight ratio of 0.19 and costs $105,000. The MT-07 costs just cover $8,000. So yeah, motorcycles win. They're cheaper, typically faster in most scenarios, and way more fun. Cars are just way too expensive, hard to work on, and way less fun to drive. How many car guys are raging right now? How many car guys are watching this while driving? Because it takes far less skill and attention to drive a car than ride a motorcycle. Be sure to subscribe to help us continue to wage this war against car lovers. Fact: according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, a pizza delivery driver is at a higher risk of injury and death than a construction worker or police officer. While most pizza delivery drivers are hurt and killed in traffic accidents, many others are attacked, assaulted, and even shot while out on delivery.
Keep watching Amy Noob!